When I speak to people that are interested in doing private lending, either prospective investors or people that have done some private lending but not so necessarily experienced, I notice that these investors tend to think private lending is very safe because it comes with a property being secured. Therefore, private lending has no risk and people will never lose money. But that is not true at all. Today I'm going to share my personal story again. This is me doing my first power of sale on the mortgage default as a lender, how I lost money and later on recouped it. So if you are interested in making profits by being a private lender, I hope you will get an idea of the risks involved in private lending so you can use that to develop your own lending guideline to protect your capital. So everything started in October 2021. I had a pretty established real estate operator in Northern Ontario. He reached out to me to borrow a mortgage from me using a mixed-use property in Sault Ste. Marie, a sixplex with a commercial space as collateral. And this subject property right across the street is an apartment complex, and there are amenities nearby such as Tim Hortons, grocery stores, so I thought this location is decent. In terms of the borrower, that's actually the same guy that defaulted on my promissory note, which is a story I told you in another video. By the time he was quite successful and he was executing the burst strategy very well and he was relatively capitalized, so I provided a loan of 50% loan to value to him, thinking it's going to be a safe investment. Fast forward to March 2022, the Bank of Canada started a quantitative tightening. Interest rates started to go up drastically. These policies started to cool off the real estate, particularly here in Ontario. It made several impacts on Canadian residents because the cost of credit has gone up, so businesses start to charge more for their products, their service. That created a whole domino effect that drove the cost of living higher. And this impacted my borrower situation as well because his tenants were not able to pay him on time, which eventually led to him to default on my loan. So as you can imagine, I had to start the legal process. The legal work in a power of sale is very similar to a promissory note litigation, but the enforcement process was very different. Lenders can sell the property under a mortgage default, which we'll talk about in more detail later in this video. So similar to a promissory note, the first step in the legal process is to send out a demand letter, demanding the borrower to pay back the loan. And this is how a demand letter looks like. And so of course, the borrower did not respond to this demand letter at all. So the second step we took was to send out a notice of sale on the mortgage to the borrower. And once you send out this notice of sale on the mortgage, you do have to give the borrower 37 calendar days to redeem. And wasn't to my surprise, the borrower did not respond to this action either. So the next step we took was to start a statement of claim. But that was in May 2022 already, and at the time, I had two lawsuits going on at the same time, one for a promissory note and one for a mortgage default. So when it rains, it really pours, I guess. For mortgage defaults, I do believe you need to bring a motion to see a judge because that's exactly what we did. We booked a hearing date and we got to see a judge on December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas. So I didn't have a good Christmas for that year. The borrower, now called the defendant, showed up in the hearing, kept saying that I will pay. So the judge scheduled another meeting, giving him another 2 weeks to clean up the situation. 2 weeks went by and nothing happened. So we were able to obtain a judgment and it came with a writ of possession on the second hearing, but that was in January 2023 already. At the time, interest rates were pretty high. If you remember, residential mortgages were 6 to 8%. Real estate activities were pretty low, days on the market were pretty long. So all that translated into one thing for me as a lender trying to sell this property to recoup my investment. That is, this property was really hard to sell at the time. What made my situation even worse was that because of my borrower, the landlord, did not take care of the building, the property had a flooded basement, broken windows, unauthorized conversions, and other issues. And me as a lender in a power of sale proceeding, I had to temporarily step in as the landlord. So I had to pay for a property manager, some tradespeople to take care of the building, and even paid for some of the repairs to make the building more presentable and easier for me to sell. So that was a lot of money out of my pocket before I can sell the property and get paid. I did hire a realtor to sell this property for me, but because of the condition and the lower rents on this property, it took us almost 5 months to sell this building. And we did sell for less than what it was purchased for because that's the highest bid we could get. So after adding all the legal fees, property management fees, repairs, I sold the building at a loss. But lucky for me, the judgment debtor, the borrower, had other properties. At the time, these properties were being power sold by their mortgage lender as well, so I was able to collect the proceeds from the writ. And in March 2024, 2 years after I started the claim, I was finally paid out. So for you as an investor, what can you learn from my experience from this transaction? Here are my top 3 takeaways. Number 1, lower your exposure risk. Exposure risk in simple words means how much money you loan to one person or one entity at a given time. Because when you lend multiple loans to one person or one entity, when they get into financial distress, they will likely default on all the loans you provided to them. And that was the domino effect I experienced in my situation. So put a limit on how much you will loan to one person at a given time. Takeaway number 2, keep your loan to value in check. Real estate prices won't go up forever. Economic changes, monetary policy changes, demand supply of real estate, all this can impact the real estate valuation. So what you want to do is to keep your loan to value as low as possible. That will push the borrowers to have more equity, more skin in the game into these properties. So that way, if there's a downturn, their capital is at risk before yours is. Takeaway number 3, do not overlend, always put some money aside. I used to think I need to give every dollar a job, but I don't think about it that way anymore. You need the money to pay multiple lawyers to litigate, to enforce, to transact, and none of that is going to be cheap. You need the money put aside to even go through this process. If you're considering investing in private lending and you would like to understand how it really works and have your capital protected, I'd be more than happy to help you. And you can book a private consultation with me at KaiLu.ca. If you like this video, please comment, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next time.